Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome. This is Beth Caldwell. I'm pleased to welcome you to my free teleclass, The Biggest Publicity Mistakes Made by Professionals Today. I am in a celebration mode, celebrating the release of my new Publicity Action Workbook, and that's a whole part of my transitioning out of the public relations business and full-time into being a professional speaker and writer. A transition that I've been working on for several years. In 2012, I said I want to do more writing. My first book came out in 2009. In 2012, I really had a hold of that writing bug, and I really enjoyed it. And I said in 2012, I want to do more writing. And I got a book contract about 2 days later, talk about the law of attraction. It was fantastic. And I began writing a column for the Pittsburgh Business Times magazine or newspaper, and then the Smart Business magazine column came along a few months after that. And with the full-time writing gigs and being a writer, I've been able to step away from my public relations business, which I operated very successfully for more than 10 years. So today I'm a full-time professional speaker. I get to travel and speak and inspire and motivate audiences all over the United States and soon to be Canada. I'm very thrilled about our upcoming trip to Canada. And yet still, I get requests nearly every day for people who've heard about my public relations services. Maybe they've heard about me from a client and would like to hire me as their publicist, and that is something that I do not do, but I still get tons of questions on it. So over the past year, I have put together all of my tips and strategies that I did for my clients when I was a full-time publicist, put it together in a book, which I'll tell you a little bit about later this evening, and I put together a publicity boot camp to help people who are ready to do their own publicity. And so tonight I'm offering this free class, partly in celebration and in sharing, and this will also give me a recording that I can put on my website when people say to me, Beth, can you help me with my publicity? And I say, oh, I wish I could, but I can't do that. But here's a recording that you can listen to that will give you some great tips. So thanks for being a part of this celebration for me. I am recording this call. Towards the end of the content, I am going to open up the call for questions. I will stop the recording at that time so that you can ask me your questions and not have to worry about being on the recording. And so if we do go teeny little bit over an hour, we'll do that with questions. But I'm going to get you all the content that I can in the next 55 minutes. So tonight we're going to talk about the biggest publicity mistakes made by professionals. And I'm going to cover a lot of content in this so that we will cover the topics of writing a press release, creating your press kit, creating your media contact list, how to pitch your story, presenting yourself for an interview, and leveraging your media coverage. I'm going to cover each of those topics this evening. And it's interesting because as I was writing this workshop last night, I had this idea when I was teaching in a workshop last month that I give tips. I give tips and tips and tips, and I'll teach a process, and then I'll say, okay, let me give you a tip. And then I always heard myself saying, oh, don't make this mistake. Don't make this mistake. So about a month ago, I had the idea about the mistakes that people make and some of the stories that I'll be able to share with you. And as I share these mistakes, you're going to also learn strategies. So I have 10 of them for you tonight. We're going to count them down. So we'll go ahead right away and begin with big publicity mistake number 10. And that is not writing press releases regularly. So many people that I know have a publicity plan called the reactive plan. And the reactive plan is when I think of something or when something happens in the news, I pull myself together and send out a press release. And you know what? That works for some people. But gosh, it's a little stressful to have the reactive plan in place. For those of you who are yearning for a mindful existence, the reactive publicity plan is not one that I recommend. So if you have a publicity plan, something that I encourage you to put in place every single year, then you'll write regular press releases. Most of my clients, I recommend that they write a press release once a month. But depending on your business, that might be something that you do more seasonally or quarterly. But for most clients, unless you have like a seasonal business, for example, if you are an apple orchard, right, your time of business is when the apples are in bloom. So at that time, if you're a seasonal business, you may send a press release every week during apple season, and you take the rest of the year off. But for most people, service professionals, consultants, healers, physicians, restaurants, chiropractors, once a month is a really great idea. And here's what I know. If you have a plan and you have a schedule, you tend to get it done. What about all those things that we have that we want to do someday and they're in a pile or in a list somewhere and they really often never happen? If you put it on your to-do list and you schedule it as a part of your marketing, you'll be able to pull together a press release once a month. Now, what if you skip a month? That's not a tragedy. But if you have a system in place, so much easier to take advantage of a publicity opportunity when one would happen to come up, and you don't have to be reactive because you can be a little bit pulled together. So big mistake number 10 is not writing regular press releases. I recommend that you have a press release template just as you have maybe a brochure template or a regular letter or an email template that you might use for your marketing and your business. And set it up the first time you send a press release and keep that so that you use that same format over and over and over again. That way you are saving yourself a lot of time. You can always improve that template as time goes on a little bit every time, but having a template makes it really easy. So let me move on to big mistake number 9, big publicity mistake number 9. Oh, this is a good one. Writing an old-fashioned press release. So if you have gone to college for publicity and you have learned how to write a press release out of a textbook, or if you're one of those do-it-yourselfers who has gone onto Google and wrote into Google, how do I write a press release, and you've come up with a template, a traditional template, and you notice that they're very, very formal, and usually at the top they say for immediate release. At the bottom they always end with 3 pound signs or 3 hashtags. Those press release standards were set up many, many, many decades ago. Back in the days when the person who was getting the press release was the radio announcer who was reading the press release off of a teletype machine. When is the last time you saw somebody using a teletype machine? The reason that we used the 3 hashtags or the 3 pound signs was because he was reading the news. Generally, it came to him from the Associated Press, okay? He was reading the news, and when he saw the 3 pound signs, and I say he because it was only men back in those days. That's how long ago we are. When he saw the 3 pound signs, he knew when to pause and take a breath. A news story was coming up. So for those of you, I wish we were in a room today. I wish I had all 60, I think there's 68 of you on here live tonight. If we were all in the same room, I could ask you, how many of you use a typewriter to send out your press releases, right? Or how many of you use a fax machine? Most of us are not using a typewriter or fax machine. Therefore, we don't need to follow those standards of the 3 pound signs, meaning there's another page coming or this is the end. We don't have to use those things because we're not using typewriters or fax machines anymore. Most of us are doing email. Some of us are doing things printed in the mail. If we send somebody something printed in the mail, we don't need to tell them this is the last page because they have it in their hand, okay? So here's my tip for you. Make your press release stand out. It doesn't have to conform to anybody's rules anymore. The rules of the media have changed since the days of teletypes, typewriters, and fax machines, okay? So you can use color. You can include images. You can, I was going to say something about an image, and I lost my train of thought there for a second. You can shy away from the old-fashioned way of sending a press release, which is who, what, where, when, and why, and assume that they'll write the story for you because they're going to come to your home or office and interview you. these things don't happen anymore. You can actually tell them the whole story now. You do want to try to keep your press release very concise, but that's a whole other class. We could do a whole hour on writing a press release and what's included in it. But you don't have to keep it black and white. Oh, I know what I was going to say about the headline. So the headline strictly was for immediate release, You know, that's when we were getting our news over the radio, and it was really important news. Now, some of you are announcing that you received an award. Some of you are announcing that you just released a book, right? That is not breaking news, right? That's helpful news. That's interesting news. That's informative news. You do not have to call that for immediate release. You can put different headlines like community news or I like to put out media release, because we're not just sending our press releases anymore to the press. Some of us send our press releases to bloggers and Blog Talk Radio and places like that. So we don't need to necessarily call it a press release. So you can be more modern with your press release. So that's big mistake number 9. Big mistake number 10, not writing your press releases regularly. Number 9, writing an old-fashioned press release. Now, there's nothing wrong with writing an old-fashioned press release, but my goal for you is that when the reporters, editors, and producers receive your press release, that it stands out from the other 199 releases they've received that morning or that afternoon. So that's one reason why I want you to have yours modern. I want you to have it colorful. I want you to have pictures included. I want them to be able to imagine your story as they're reading your press release. Moving on to big mistake number 8. Now, if we were in a room together, some of you would be hiding your faces right now as I announce this one. Big mistake number 8 is not having a recent professional photo. You guys know who you are. I was recently at an awards dinner with my friend Mary, one of my Leadership Academy graduates. And Mary was winning an award, and we were sitting in the front row at this awards banquet watching people get their community awards. And honestly, there was more than one time when we looked at each other and said, is that his son? Or is that her daughter? Because people had photos that were so old, they did not even resemble the person that was up on the big screen in front of us. So you want to have a professional photo, and that does not mean that it was taken by your husband or your boyfriend or your cousin or your college student. That was taken by an actual professional photographer, not one who took a class in photography, not a hobby photographer, but somebody who actually does photography for a living and does it well, okay? Somebody who is a professional photographer that will understand that the reason that you want that photo is to attract publicity attention. If you want to get publicity for your business, you do not want to be cheap in this area. And I have lots and lots of tips. In fact, I have a free ebook on how to take a great professional photo. I'll give you a couple of quick tips right now. Number one, your photo should not be more than 3 to 5 years old. 3 to 5 years old. Your hair has changed since last year, and you know it. People need to be able to recognize you. You know, if you're meeting somebody at Starbucks or Panera for a coffee and they've only met you on social media and they walk into the coffee shop and they're looking around, that's a sign you need a new photo, okay? It happens all the time, and we laugh about your photos taken, don't we? But I'll tell you what, an excellent professional photo really can help you stand out from anybody else being considered for an interview. This is definitely a place that you do not want to skimp. So have a great professional photo, and maybe have more than one. Maybe have 2 or 3 shots. Those of you who have teams, I know we have a couple of attorneys on the line tonight, a couple of chiropractors on the line tonight, an insurance agency. You have maybe 8, 9, 12 people working in your firm. Make sure you have individual photos and then a group photo. That's really great for your marketing, not just your publicity, but it's good for your marketing as well. Okay, big mistake number 7. Not having a press kit, or this is really tragic, when you do have a press kit but you can't find it. I see this all the time. So what's a press kit? You know, a press kit is something that many, many years ago, when we didn't have the internet, It was a folder, an envelope with all of your media information in it. Today, your press kit can be hosted on your website, but for most people, it is a collection of documents and photos that are used for your feature in the media, your media feature. So what would be included for most people in a press kit would obviously be, number one, your professional photo, your bio, your professional bio, a fact sheet on your company. If you're a large company, a lot of times the fact sheet is something that says, your mission statement, how many employees you have, how many countries you're located in, what your products are, a little bit about your board of directors. Those kind of things are on a fact sheet. Not everybody needs one, but a fact sheet would be one. If you've written anything, articles or books, samples of your writing, samples of any other media features that you've had. Now, if you haven't had any media features, and many of you on the call tonight have never had any, you can put samples of your own video or your own audio. Not required, but you can have it. Any of your marketing materials also can be included in your press kit. The most important thing that you need to have for your press kit, and that's what I will not do a press release if you don't have it, and that's a professional photo and a professional bio. That's a must. And here's the thing. You need to be able to find it. Because when a reporter, editor, or producer calls you and they want to use your comment in a story, or they want to book you as a future interview guest, they're going to ask you, can you send me a copy of a recent photo? Can you send me your bio? Okay? So if you know where that is on your computer and you have it named correctly, for example, mine would be Beth Caldwell, 2016 photo, Beth Caldwell 2016 bio. You can email that to them, and it takes no time and no thought. But if you're like many people, you hang up the phone and you're in a panic. Where's my photo? Who has my photo? What computer is it on? What drive is it in? And you don't name your photo with your name. No, you name it something like DSG779742319, right? So you have no idea how to find that. So make it easy on yourself and take a little time and get that content organized. If you're using a desktop computer, if you're using a computer and you use the desktop to file, make a file that says press kit. Ideally, have it say your name and press kit. And I'll give you a little bonus tip too. If you think you're frantic, imagine how that producer is when he's setting up 7, 8, 10 interviews at a time. And everybody's sending him photos and bios in different formats. And they're all named DSG79942, right? Make it easy to work with you by naming your images with your name and the current year. That way, they can just go into their computer, into their email, and do a search for your name, and they're going to find your content. So that's a little extra bonus tip. So big mistake number eight was not having a professional photo, and number 7, not having a press kit or not being able to find it. So when you get your press materials, your photo, your bio, your marketing information together, put it in a place where not only you can find it, but where anybody in your office can find it. Let's just imagine that a producer calls and they want a quote from you. You're on the road somewhere speaking at a big conference, but they need it in an hour. You give them the quote over the phone, and then you have somebody else in your office go to your computer and send your image and your bio. So make it easy for other people to find as well. How's that sound to you? I wish we were in the same room so I could see what you were thinking about these. I can't wait to hear your thoughts and your questions. Don't forget, I'll have time for questions at the end tonight, and I really love answering questions and solving problems. So I hope that some of you will speak up with some. Big publicity mistake number 6 is not having a specific contact list for the media. Now, let me clear up some myths about a media contact list right now. You do not have to have a media list with 100 or 500 or 1,000 people. Some of my clients in the past have had media lists as small as 6 contacts. A lot of people that I work with, and I really have specialized in authors and small business owners and people. I've worked with a lot of attorneys, financial advisors, accountants, and I've worked with a lot of people in the healing arts, you know, the naturopathic, healing arts, chiropractic, those type of things. Many of my clients like that have a list of about 25 to 30 media contacts. Many of them are just looking to get local exposure for their business, so they don't need to have 200, 2,000, 500, 10,000 people on their list, okay? What you need is a good quality list of the right people. So a common mistake would be to send your press release to the wrong reporter or the wrong editor. It might be the right newspaper or the right magazine or the right radio station. But put yourself in the shoes of the producers today, TV, radio producers, magazine, newspaper editors. They're getting hundreds and hundreds of emails, folks. So you send an email to the wrong person, how likely do you think it is that they're going to take their time and look up the right person to send it to? Unless it's a really, really hot story, it's not very likely. So do your homework. And how do you find the right person to send it to? Well, you look at the content that you're offering. And number one, you make sure that it's a really good fit for the publication or the media outlet. So let's see, a very good example would be if you are a health and nutrition advocate or coach and you want to send out a press release about, this is February, so heart healthy recipes for National Heart Association month of February, right? So you want to send out some really easy ways to take care of your heart in the month of February. You will not send that press release to, let me think of a really funny one. Let's say Lacrosse magazine, right? So some people believe in the philosophy of just sending their press release to as many people as they possibly can, and somebody will pick it up. And you know what? That does work. I don't think it's very effective, though, at leveraging your business. So if you're a health and nutrition coach and you got featured in Lacrosse magazine, yeah, is that really impressive to your clients? See, I would rather see you featured, depending on your client base, I would rather see you featured like on Woman's World magazine online than Lacrosse magazine. So, but all exposure is good. But let's use this media coverage to also reach your ideal target audience. Does that make sense? Okay, so your big mistake, number 6, is not having a specific contact list. Make sure you're sending your content to the right contact person in the right publication. So let's do a little debrief here. Go backwards. Big publicity mistake number 10, not writing your press releases regularly. Have some kind of a system and a schedule. Number 9, writing an old-fashioned press release. So use color, use images, use catchy headlines. Big publicity mistake number 8, not having a recent professional photo, ideally taken by a professional photographer within the past 3 years would be my preference. Big publicity mistake number 7, not having a press kit or not being able to find your press kit. And big mistake number 6, not having a specific contact list. All right, let's move into one of my favorite mistakes and one of the most common. Big publicity mistake number 5 is an unprofessional pitch. And I'm not talking about baseball here. The unprofessional pitch is whenever you come in contact, whether it's in person, in email, or on the phone, with a reporter, editor, or producer, and you are pitching them your story. That's called a pitch. And the most common way that people do this is they say something to this effect. Hey, do you know what you really should do? Do you know a story that I really think that you should write? Do you know what I think? Do you know what I know? Do you know what? Do you know what? Do you know what? Now, I just want you to put yourself in the place of that reporter. They don't know you. They've never met you, and you're going to call them and tell them what to do. It's what most people do, and it's very annoying. And most of us would not enjoy that if somebody called us and told us how to do our job. Another unprofessional pitch would be, and most people do this unknowingly, and that is pitching an ad instead of a story. You see, magazines and radio and television have an advertising department, and that is who you call when you want to place an ad. And the reporters are putting together content and stories that are going to be of value to their readers, listeners, or viewers. And it's not a reporter's job to advertise your business. And I can't tell you how many times people have said to me in frustration, oh, they just diss me. Every time that I send them something, they just completely ignore me. Well, let's take a look at what you're sending. And most of the time, 100% of the time, when I have a complaint like that, the press releases are about the business owner, all about me and how wonderful I am. Well, their readers, listeners, and viewers are not really that interested. So what I encourage you to do is watch the show that you're pitching. Listen to the radio show that you want to send a pitch to. Read the publication that you want to be featured in. And what the producer, publisher, editors are doing is they're looking for excellent content for their readers, listeners, and viewers. What kind of content can you help them with? This is not the time to sell. This is the time to be of service, of value. The selling part comes later when you're leveraging your publicity, okay? So big publicity mistake number 5 is an unprofessional pitch. And let me give you an example of a professional pitch so you have an idea of that. So you want to build a relationship with this reporter. You want this to be a relationship where you are considered frequently to be a contributor. And so it might begin with an email or a post on Twitter, or perhaps if you meet them in person, often at a fundraiser or a community event, you might meet a media person. Often it would begin with genuine interest and a compliment on their work. You know, oh, hello, it's so very nice to meet you. In fact, I was just talking, obviously we want to be honest with this. We don't want to make up, but this would be an example of something that I would say. I was just talking about that story that you ran about the family with the little boy with autism. That was so touching. I really enjoyed that. Okay? Now, what I've heard other people do is say, hey, I saw that story you did about autism. I can't believe you didn't call me. You know, I'm an expert on that topic. The next time you do a story on that, you really need to call me. That's not an ideal way to say it. Let's say, for example, you are an expert on disabilities or children with disabilities or autism as a specific disability. I so appreciated that feature that you did last month on autism, and that's something that's really, really important to me. As a matter of fact, my agency works with over 100,000 families in the area that deal with autism and other related disorders. If I can ever be of assistance to you, I would be honored to help if you ever do a future story on that. So see, there's just a little subtle conversational way to do it. We all, myself included, tend to get a little bit nervous and tongue-tied when we're around members of the media. So we don't always come across in the most polished way. So just be aware of that, okay? Big mistake number 5 is having an unprofessional pitch. So practice that even. I know some of you are on here in groups, like 2-3 friends have called in together because you're helping each other with publicity and marketing. And so that's something you can practice with each other. Okay, big mistake number 4, my publicity mistake number 4. Oh, this is really common. And this happens a lot with my my professionals, such as like a therapist or a doctor, physician especially, my highly educated clients, my authors. This happens a lot with my authors. And that's when they show up into the TV studio or the radio station, or they get on the telephone with the radio station, and they realize a moment before interview that the person interviewing them has absolutely no freaking idea who they are. The reporter knows nothing about you. Most likely the producer has set up the interview. Most likely he mentioned it to the reporter, or she talked about it with the reporter in a meeting, or they sent an email. But you're being put on an interview, and this person has never read your book. They don't know anything about your past. They don't know anything about your expertise. And they have 3 minutes, which can make you look like an amazing exceptional, influential person, or you can both kind of look like you stumbled through it, okay? So do not assume that the reporter knows anything about you. And what I have trained all of my clients to do is to create a sheet of paper, which I call talking points, Talking, talking points. And talking points are a lifesaver when you find yourself in that situation where the reporter is pretending like they read your book, but they never even saw it until 30 seconds before the camera light came on. So your talking points is a very brief, and I mean extremely brief, less than 50 words, overview of you and your book, and 3 or 4 suggested things that you can talk about, or 3 or 4 ideal questions for you. Now, these are things that you have come up with ahead of time. And so if that question gets asked to you, you're not thrown off. You know exactly what to answer. Sometimes when especially a live television interview can get off track, I have seen my clients or the interviewer glance down at the talking points very subtly to get the interview back on track. So big mistake number 4, and this is a biggie because, listen, you spend a lot of time and energy getting your photo taken, writing a press release, compiling a media list, sending out a press release, answering phone calls, setting up appointments, getting your hair cut, getting professional makeup done, buying an outfit, getting the TV station. Well, when you get there, let's make it as excellent as it can possibly be, okay? So don't make the mistake and assume that that reporter knows anything about you. Bring your talking points. The next one is big. Oh, this is a good one too. Big publicity mistake number 3. Oh, for my people who have written publications, my newspaper friends, my magazine friends, even my blog friends, this is a big one for them. So here's how it goes. I'm not going to tell you the mistake yet. Here's how it goes. You send out a little pitch by email or by phone. Let's say you call somebody on the phone and you give them a pitch about maybe an event that maybe your company is hosting a fundraiser to support a cause that's special to you. So you call the magazine or newspaper or blogger and you pitch the story and they go, I think I'd like to do that. Can you send me some more information? So you get really excited and you send them the information. And sometimes maybe 3, 5, 10, 25 days might go past before you hear from them again. Now they're on deadline and they have to have the information in 5 minutes, right? Hey, we're about to go to print. I have a little space in my newspaper or my magazine, and I want to include that blurb. I want to include your event. And do you have a picture that you can send me? And can you send me the information? And you're like, yes, I can't believe it. I'm so excited. I know what you do. You hang up the phone. You're screaming. You're jumping up and down. Everybody in the office is hugging because you're going to be in a magazine, right? And you run to your computer, and you quickly send the information off without proofreading it. And so they don't proofread your stuff because they're way past deadline. Their stuff is going to print. And so they send it on to the copy editor or the person who's setting it up in place. And then that goes on to the third person. And then you, in your excitement, you go back and you read the email and you realize that you put the wrong date. Like I did yesterday when I sent you out the reminder of this call. I put 7 p.m. instead of 6 p.m., right? You did it too fast. You hit send. You were so excited. They hate when you do that. They would rather wait 10 minutes for the email and make sure that everything in there is correct than have to go back down the line and fix it here and fix it there and stop the presses and fix it. They don't want to do that. Many newspapers will just let it go with an error and print a retraction the next day. That's not great publicity for you. So my big mistake, number 3, is not proofreading before you hit send. So 3 sets of eyes. 3 sets of eyes. Look at your press release before it goes out. 3 sets of eyes. Ideally, somebody who's not emotionally attached to it, who's not so excited about it that they're not really reading it. And a little tip for you on proofreading that I find works really well, and that is to print out whatever it is that you've written, whether it's a press release or a book report or an article, right? Have somebody read it aloud to you. I learned this tip from Jack Canfield in a class that I took from Jack Canfield, author of Chicken Soup from the Soul. He's written so many books, authored so many programs, and this is a tip that I learned from him. And when you have somebody read your writing back to you, ideally somebody who really doesn't know your business that well, then you're going to hear them stumble on places that things aren't very clear. And that's a really good indication to you that you need to simplify your writing a little bit. It's one of my favorite tips on proofreading. So make sure you proofread before you hit send, ideally 3 sets of eyes looking at every piece of paper. Okay, here's another favorite of mine, and I'll tell you, my business, my publicity business was at its peak during the time that Tiger Woods began having his big issues with his marriage. So we're going back 8-9 years ago now, right? And I always said, oh, Tiger would only listen to me. And not everybody here, I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania tonight, here in a very snowy, cold February afternoon, but I know that we have people calling in from all over the country. But for those of you who live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where we have the Pittsburgh Steelers, we were having a little conflict that time with our quarterback of our Steeler football team, Ben Roethlisberger, who was being a bad boy, getting into trouble all over the place. And I always said the best thing that ever happened to Ben Roethlisberger was Tiger Woods, okay? Because when Tiger Woods got into trouble, everybody quit talking about Ben, and that was the best thing. But here's the secret. Nobody really would have been talking much about them if they would have just made a comment. And my big mistake number 2 for you is don't avoid negative publicity. Don't avoid it. When you avoid negative publicity, you're just giving the media the opportunity to imagine what you might say if you did say something. They speculate. And it drags a painful experience out just a little longer. And it's not good for you, and it's not good for your company. So if something happens in your company, your organization, your church, your community, your neighborhood, whatever, it is absolutely okay to admit your disappointment, your regret, your mistake, or the mistake of your team member, or any other appropriate feelings for the situation. So some good words to use are disappointed, discouraged, saddened, shocked, upset, regret, accept, and serious. You guys would have to go back and listen to the recording. I said that fast, didn't I? I can remember what I said. When I get excited, I get on a roll. I pick up speed, don't I? Let's see. Disappointment, regret, discouraged, shock, upset, saddened. I think I said regret. Accept is a good one. And serious. Now, if you do have something very, very serious happening in your company, I highly recommend that you seek advice from a publicity professional or a legal professional before you go public with any comments that might make you appear liable. You know, I am not your legal consultant here. I'm your publicity consultant, so you might want to seek advice. Another thing that I want to tell you about avoiding negative publicity is that it is absolutely okay if you are feeling barraged by the media and overwhelmed by the media. You know, well, what do we see on TV all the time? No comment, no comment, no comment, no comment. You know, like, come on, that's a TV show. That's not real life. It's okay if you say to a reporter, can I give you a comment at 3 p.m.? I can't talk about this right now. Will you call me back at 6 p.m.? You have just made their day. And you can pick just one reporter or editor to talk to. So, for example, if you have a lot of reporters calling you and you've decided that you're only going to speak to CNN, okay, because it's not a little problem, it's going to be a really big problem, right? So you can say, we're giving a public comment on CNN at 6 p.m. Now they don't have anything to speculate on. They know what's happening. So a lot of people think that they need to have an instant answer for a reporter. You also, let's say that you're not having negative publicity. Let's just say that you're having a regular interview and it goes a little off topic and you get asked a question that surprises you. You know, some reporters do this to you. There are some television stations and radio stations that want controversy, and so they'll often surprise you with a question. It's okay to say, I need a minute before I answer that question. I'm not sure what to say to that. That's totally okay. They actually love it when you do that, okay? You don't have to say, I'd rather not comment. you can just be honest and say, I don't think I have an appropriate comment. I don't think I have an appropriate response. Or how about here's another thing. How about if we schedule a separate interview for that topic, Dan? And you kind of just give it back to them that way. So big mistake number 2 is avoiding negative publicity. It's very, very important in today's world of instant media that you acknowledge something that's going on, okay? All right, are you ready for big mistake number 1? Drum roll, please. This is the most common and I think the most important mistake that I see people making every day. Big publicity mistake number 1 is not leveraging your media coverage. So you spend all the time getting ready for your publicity. You know, you do what we talked about before. You hire a professional photographer. You spend money and spend time getting photography done, and then you get these new marketing materials, and you get a new website, and you get a new wardrobe, and you get new hair. You do all this stuff, and you get an interview, and you're like, I did it. And then you don't do anything with it. So, yeah, I mean, that's really nice to have publicity, but what I really want for all of you on the call tonight is to have an abundant business that where you have as many clients as you can handle with a waiting list, where you have people paying you what you're worth, where you're not asking for people for their business, but they're actually calling and asking you. Publicity is one tool to get you to that space. And so you need to leverage the publicity that you do gain. So here's some examples. So let's say that you're a yoga studio, like my friend Heather, who's on the call tonight. And you go into Heather's yoga studio, and on the wall, there's a picture of Heather teaching a class, and it says, as seen in Yogi Magazine. Wow. That's pretty impressive. You're in a magazine, right? Or maybe it wasn't publicity, but maybe it was an award, which is a form of publicity. Let's say Heather's in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so we'll say Pittsburgh's favorite yoga studio, 2016. Wow. Voted on by the readers. Oh, wow. You see how impressive that is? That helps you stand apart, Heather, in your example, for when that same client gets an email from Groupon that says, take 29 yoga lessons for $4. Right? How can you compete with that, right? That's just like crazy, right? But that's what you're doing a lot of times in businesses like that. But they're like, no, I think that Heather's really an expert, and this is my body, my breath, and my, I want to go to somebody who really knows what they're doing. And if somebody only charges $4, then they're probably not as good as Heather. They haven't won any awards. They haven't been featured on television, okay, or in the newspaper or in a magazine. So as seen in. So those are plaques or posters, or even for those of you on a really tight budget, so you just clip out your article from the newspaper and put it in a frame that you bought at Target, and it's on the reception desk, okay? That is as seen in. Now, you can also put that on your website. I mean, if it's print, you can still put it as seen in USA Today, as seen in Woman's World Magazine, as featured on Working Mother, Sports Illustrated, whatever it is. The as seen in is good to put on your website and in your office if you have one. For those of you who are speakers, it's really great to put that you've received media coverage, because if you're a speaker like me and you are filling out a form to apply to be a speaker at a large national conference, and there are 300 other speakers applying, having been featured on national media or being on national television will certainly help you stand out from your competition, okay? These things also should go into your bio and into your social media profile. So if you have a LinkedIn profile, if you have a Facebook profile, you should be putting into your profiles as seen in with a link to that coverage if possible, okay? Now, for those of you who are bloggers who have been featured in blogs, myself, I've been on Blog Talk Radio and different radio stations. I've been in different newspapers, and I'm really blessed to be able to write a column for 2 newspapers and 1 magazine. One way that you can leverage your publicity is to repost your features often. for those of you who follow me, you just saw me do this recently. A couple of weeks ago, we had a pretty big storm. Well, in 2014, 2 years ago, March, I wrote an article called 10 Things to Do for Your Business When You're Snowed In. I repurposed that content. I repost it in my email newsletter, on my Twitter feed, my Facebook, my LinkedIn, and inside of my LinkedIn groups and my Facebook groups, I will post that. And what I did a few weeks ago, I put for my friends in the South, we didn't have any snow, but my friends in the South were just getting hammered with snow. Here's something for you to do while you're stuck inside this weekend. Okay, I put a comment, and then I put the link to my article, 10 Things to Do for Your Business When You're Snowed In. Now, that article is 3 years old, 3 years old. So repurposing it, just because it was printed then, there's a lot of people that know me now that didn't know me then. There's a lot of people who knew me then that didn't see the article then. So leverage your media coverage, okay? Now, I want to go through these tips again. Let me check my time, see how we're doing. We still have about 10 minutes left, so I will have time for your questions. If you have some questions, please write them down. Let's go backwards. Big mistake number 10, not writing your press releases regularly. Big mistake number 9, writing an old-fashioned press release without color, images, or without a catchy headline. Big mistake number 8, not having a recent professional photo. Big publicity mistake number 7, not having a press kit or not being able to find it. Big mistake number 6, not having a specific contact list. Number 5, am I talking too fast for you guys? See, this is another thing. I love being able to give content in this way because we can reach so many people, but I can't see your faces, and I can't watch your hands writing, so I don't know if I'm going too fast. But I have a tendency to go fast, so I'll take a deep breath, settle myself for a moment. Big publicity mistake number 5, an unprofessional pitch. Big publicity mistake number 4, assuming that the reporter knows all about you. I wonder if you guys chuckled when I said that to you. Could you imagine yourself in that situation, assuming that the reporter knows all about you? Because don't we think, of course, they read my book. They knew they were interviewing me, right? They just don't have the time. Or maybe they're not even interested in our topic. But remember to bring talking points with you so that that doesn't happen to you. Big mistake number 3, not proofreading before you hit send. Big publicity mistake number 2, avoiding negative publicity. And the biggest ever publicity mistake number 1 is not leveraging your media coverage. So if you would like to receive more publicity tips from me on a regular basis, make sure that you follow me on Pinterest. If you're on Pinterest, if you go to Beth A. Caldwell on Pinterest, Beth, E-T-H-A, Caldwell, C-A-L-D-W-E-L-L, you'll find a board that I have called Publicity Tips. And anytime that I find something new or cool, I post it on that board. You can also connect with me and follow me on Facebook or LinkedIn. And if you like to listen to audio recordings such as this, I have a channel on an organization called Spreaker, S-P-R-E-A-K-E-R, Spreaker. And you can just go to Spreaker.com and look at Beth Caldwell, and you'll find 5 or 6 workshops there. And I want to invite you to help me to celebrate the release of my new Publicity Action Workbook with a program coming up in March. Something new that I'm doing called Publicity Boot Camp. It's a 4-week program. Now, I understand that some of you on the call, I have given you more than enough information to go forward and get some publicity, and I think that's great. And by the way, when you get publicity, please let me know because I want to celebrate you. But there are some of you who need a little bit more help or want a little bit more hand-holding. And there are some of you that are not going to be doing your own publicity, but you have a team member that you want to get trained to do your publicity. And for those of you listening, I want to invite you to my Publicity Boot Camp. And you can find out about it online. If you type in, if you're on the internet, you type in March, M-A-R-C-H, PR Boot Camp, March PR Boot Camp.eventbrite.com. That's where you can find all the information about my Publicity Boot Camp. I will also send you an email out so that you can take a look at it. But I'm really thrilled to be offering the boot camp. And here's what it includes. It includes my brand new workbook. It's over 300 pages of publicity strategy tips and examples for those of you who are going to do your publicity plan by yourself or have a team member do it for you. And it is everything that you need to put together a complete publicity list, a complete publicity plan. That workbook in itself is just what you need to get yourself leveraged and get yourself systemized and get yourself going. But I discovered that a lot of people buy books and then they don't really read them. They just sort of skim through them. And so we created an additional bonus to go with that, and that is 4 teleclasses, just like the one tonight, where I go through step by step the really most important things. If you're not going to read the book or you're not going to read the book thoroughly, the most important things that you need to do and what will get you a plan together within a 4-week time. We are going to meet the 4 Wednesday evenings in March, beginning on the 9th. March 9th, March 16th, March 23rd, and March 30th. They'll all be at 6 o'clock, just like this evening. So the first class will talk about how to develop your unique media hook, how you make your hook sound like it's not an ad, how to create a hook that's interesting and attractive to the media professionals, the reporters, the editors, and producers. In the second class, we talk very in-depth about how to create a very customized media contact list. When I created this, I thought this would be the most simple one, but it's the one that I get the most questions on. And it is the one that seems to generate the most action and help people to get started in their plan. On March 23rd, I'm going to walk through with you how to create an attention-getting press release. We want a press release for you that does not get deleted from the person's email and doesn't get thrown in the trash when you send them in the mail, okay? So I'm going to teach you how to create an attention-getting press release. And then on March 30th, our last class together, how to implement and automate your publicity plan. And most importantly, how step-by-step to leverage your publicity coverage. So in the Publicity Bootcamp package, you get the big workbook, and this is actually not an ebook. This is a workbook that gets mailed to you in the mail, and it's a big package because it's a big-size workbook with lots of great tips in it, just jam-packed with tips and strategies and a lot of examples for you. And you get the 4 calls, and those are teleclasses just like the one tonight. So hopefully you get to attend them live, but if not, you'll get the recording. And frankly, that recording is so important because you don't always implement what you learned immediately, and those recordings will come in really, really handy when you're working in the future on your publicity, or when maybe you're doing publicity for your child's sports team or your church, or your son's Eagle Scout program, and you want to re-listen to that recording from a different perspective for a different project. Those recordings are really valuable. And then in addition, as a bonus for helping me celebrate, I will include a 30-minute telephone consultation with me for after the boot camp, where I will listen to your pitch or review your press release or go over your plan with you and give you my additional strategies and tips to really polish it off. That is a time for you to use my expertise to really strategize the details of your publicity plan. And I give you about 30 days after the class because this is a lot of information. You don't have to have that strategy session right away. One of my really most exciting and fun things to do, though, is have those strategy sessions with people. So the March 2016 Publicity Bootcamp, beginning on March the 9th, a couple weeks from tonight, is you're probably going, okay, how much is it? It's $298 for the workbook, the 4 sessions, and the 30-minute strategy session with me. So for those of you who are ready to take your publicity to the next level, I want to invite you to join me at Publicity Bootcamp. And you can find that at marchprbootcamp.eventbrite.com. And so I just want to thank you so much for spending some time with me this evening and listening to my tips. I'm going to end the recording right now and unmute you so that I can answer your questions now. One moment.